I have spent much of my life chasing things that were never mine to hold. In my youth, I believed that if I planned meticulously, worked relentlessly, and persuaded others with force of will, the world would bend to my desire. I soon discovered the truth. Life does not respond to commands, nor does it answer the prayers of those who try to manipulate every outcome. The harder I grasped, the heavier my spirit became. I worried about people I could not change, schemes I could not steer, and troubles that were beyond my control. It was exhausting. The constant weight of these unseen burdens pressed against me, shaping every thought and action. And then, in a moment of quiet despair, I realized something fundamental. The real power in life lies not in controlling what surrounds us, but in mastering what resides within. The first lesson I learned was about attachment. I had tied my sense of worth to outcomes I could not command. Praise, recognition, wealth, relationships. I bound my peace to them, believing they were proof of my value. And when they shifted or vanished, I felt betrayed, unsettled, angry. It was as if the world itself conspired against me, though in reality it had done nothing. I was merely clinging to borrowed things, expecting permanence where none could exist. I remember sitting alone one night, reflecting on the words of Marcus Aurelius, who had governed vast lands and yet had disciplined himself to rule only his mind. "You have power over your mind, not outside events," he had written. That insight struck me like a thunderbolt. If the world could take everything away, what could it never touch? Only my own choices, my own discipline, my own character. From that moment, I began a deliberate practice of detachment. Detachment is not indifference. It is not coldness or withdrawal. It is the clarity to care without clinging, to act without desperation, to love without binding another's presence to your happiness. I began examining my suffering, identifying the sources that were never truly mine: a colleague's approval, a friendship that faltered, a failed plan I had expected to succeed. I realized that my grief had been self-inflicted. Each night I replayed what I could not control. I surrendered more of my peace. In learning to let go, I found lightness. I began to understand that freedom does not come from holding everything, but from holding nothing too tightly. Expectations became my next teacher. I had spent decades planting seeds in my mind, hoping they would grow exactly as I intended. Each disappointment felt like a personal failure, though in truth, the world had merely unfolded as it would. The tyranny of expectation is subtle but relentless. It traps us in a prison of our own design. The Stoics warned against this, and Epictetus' words echoed in my mind. "Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will flow smoothly." I had demanded obedience from the universe, insisting that life follow my blueprints, and I had paid the price in anxiety, bitterness, and sleepless nights. I started practicing a daily exercise. When a plan faltered or a relationship soured, instead of asking "why me?" I asked, "what now?" This simple pivot changed everything. It shifted my focus from the illusion of control to the realm of action. I could not dictate outcomes, but I could choose my response. I began to see setbacks as opportunities to exercise judgment, to cultivate patience, and to reinforce my character. The world remained unpredictable, but I was no longer a prisoner of its whims. Letting go became my liberation. I imagined holding a handful of sand. The tighter I squeezed, the more slipped through my fingers. Life's treasures, ambitions, dreams, love, recognition, behave in the same way. Cling too tightly and all is lost. Hold with open hands and what is meant for you will remain, at least for a time. This does not mean abandoning effort. It means trusting that the fruits of your labor are gifts, not entitlements. The Stoics reminded us that fortune is fickle, giving without warning and taking without apology. I learned to work honestly, to care deeply, yet not to bind my soul to results. In that practice, I discovered a quiet power. My inner life became untouchable. Loss no longer cut as deeply, and disappointment lost its sharp edge. My peace was no longer dependent on the whims of the world. I visualized myself as a stone settled deep in the heart of a river. Around me, the water moved relentlessly, sometimes gentle, sometimes violent. Leaves drifted past, branches tumbled downstream, even boulders shifted, yet the stone remained still unmoved. It did not curse the current or grab desperately at passing driftwood. It simply endured. I realized I must become like that stone, steadfast amid change, rooted amid chaos. True strength is not resisting the flow, but remaining grounded within it. As I adopted this mindset, I noticed the weight I had carried all my life, burdens of expectation, fear, anger, envy, and longing. Each was a link I had forged with my own hands. I began questioning every thought and every emotion. When anger rose, I asked, "Is this worthy of me?" When desire pulled at me, I reminded myself, not all that tempts is worth pursuing. When loss struck, I repeated, I was always living on borrowed time. In this disciplined practice, I trained my mind to govern itself, to remain unshaken by the external world. Adversity became my teacher. It revealed my true character and exposed my illusions. I realized that comfort alone breeds weakness, while challenge shapes strength. I faced hardship as a necessary counterweight to ease, welcoming it as the forge in which patience, endurance, and wisdom were tempered. Each setback taught me more about myself than any success ever could. I learned that the world does not owe ease, fairness, or reward, but it offers lessons at every turn. The company we keep also influenced my journey. For years, I allowed the opinions, moods, and actions of others to dictate my inner state. I longed for approval and validation, only to find myself disappointed repeatedly. Then I understood Epictetus' counsel. It is not others who disturb us, but our attachment to their actions. I began to surround myself with companions whose presence uplifted and strengthened me, but I no longer allowed their moods or choices to dictate my peace. I could offer kindness, loyalty, and honesty without demanding the same in return. Simplicity became my next pursuit. Life is filled with noise, distractions, and excess. I realized that the fewer things I chased, the lighter I became. Every unnecessary desire, every obligation, every comparison to others was another chain. I began stripping my life down to essentials, my character, my purpose, and my peace of mind. I acted deliberately, spoke thoughtfully, and focused only on what truly mattered. With this clarity came serenity. I no longer wasted energy on the trivial or fleeting. My mind, once crowded with anxieties and ambitions, began to quiet, allowing me to see my path clearly. Living in the present became my anchor. The past is unchangeable and the future unknowable. For years, I had wandered the empty streets of yesterday, mourning choices and replaying conversations. I realized that every hour spent clinging to what is gone steals from what is still mine, the present. I began training myself to remain fully here in this moment. Each breath, each word, each action, I met awake, attentive, and fully engaged. The present is the only possession that can never be taken, and when I embraced it, I discovered a profound peace. Patience and endurance became companions on this journey. Life is slow to reveal its treasures, and the world will never move entirely according to our schedule. I learned to meet delays and obstacles with composure. Each trial endured without complaint, each challenge faced with steadiness became a building block for my strength. Endurance is not passive resignation. It is active engagement, a choice to remain firm and steady amid uncertainty. With patience, I began to see the hidden growth in every delay, every difficulty, and every setback. Adversity, once feared, became a welcome teacher. I came to see hardship as the fire in which my character was forged. I welcomed trials not with dread, but with resolve, knowing that each challenge revealed the reserves of courage and creativity within me. I understood that suffering does not define us. How we respond to it does. Each obstacle became a lesson in endurance, each setback an opportunity to transform pain into resilience. This is how I learned the true power of self-mastery, to respond rather than react. Between every event and my response exists a small space, a blink of an eye in which freedom resides. Most people leap blindly into reaction, allowing anger, fear, and desire to dictate their actions. I learned to pause, to observe, and to choose. In that small moment, I reclaimed my sovereignty. I could meet insult with calm, loss with acceptance, and misfortune with reason. By responding rather than reacting, I discovered a peace and strength that the world could not touch. And so, in my first stage of understanding, I learned the key lessons. Let go of what is not yours, accept what cannot be changed, cultivate detachment, master your mind, embrace patience and endurance, welcome adversity, choose companions wisely, live simply, remain present, and respond instead of react. Each day was a practice, a step toward freedom from the invisible chains I had carried my entire life. By the time I paused to reflect on these lessons, I realized that I had uncovered a profound truth. The treasures that truly matter, courage, wisdom, discipline, patience, and inner peace, cannot be taken from us. They are ours to cultivate, ours to protect, and ours to carry forward. Everything else is borrowed, fleeting, and ultimately beyond control. The world could rage, fortunes could rise and fall, people could praise or condemn, yet none of this could touch the life I had built within. I had become like the stone in the river, steady and unmoved, holding myself firmly while the current of life surged around me. In that steadiness, I began to understand the secret of true strength. It is not in controlling the world, but in mastering oneself. This was the foundation of the life I sought. When I emerged from the first lessons, I thought I had reached clarity. I had learned to detach from outcomes, to let go of attachments, to respond rather than react. Yet life, in its infinite subtlety, had more to teach. The next phase of understanding was about mastering desire, fear, and the restless mind, the inner forces that had, for so long, dictated my actions without my awareness. I began to notice how often I had been carried away by invisible currents, how untrained emotions had made decisions for me, how idle thoughts had grown into mountains of worry. Freedom, I realized, required more than passive acceptance. It demanded discipline, conscious choice, and deliberate practice. I started with desire. Desire is a powerful force. It can inspire greatness or lead to ruin. I had believed for many years that ambition alone would secure my success. I chased wealth, recognition, and influence, believing that achieving these would finally bring contentment. Instead, I discovered that unchecked desire only amplified my suffering. Every unfulfilled wish, every thwarted ambition, every fleeting pleasure I had clung to left a residue of dissatisfaction. I realized desire, if left unexamined, becomes a chain, binding the mind to endless want. So I began to examine my desires with ruthless honesty, which were true and which were illusions, which served my growth and which served only fleeting satisfaction. I found that most desires were borrowed, from society, from family, from fleeting social expectations. The real work, I learned, was in cultivating aligned desire, a focused, purposeful, disciplined longing for what truly mattered. Aligned desire motivates without obsession, inspires without anxiety, and directs energy without scattering it. I discovered that when desire is harnessed, it becomes a servant. When uncontrolled, it becomes a master. Next, I confronted fear, the silent thief of joy. Fear had stalked me for decades, though I scarcely realized its influence. Fear of failure, of rejection, of loss, and of insignificance had limited my actions and clouded my judgment. I realized that fear is always rooted in imagination, never in reality. The events we dread often never come, and even when they do, fear only compounds their impact. I began to meet fear not with avoidance, but with observation. I would sit with the emotion, name it, and ask, what is this teaching me? Fear, once acknowledged, lost its tyrannical grip. It became a teacher, not a jailer. Each time I acted despite fear, courage strengthened within me, building an inner fortress no circumstance could breach. I also recognized the power of thought discipline. My mind, previously a chaotic theater of random impulses, judgments, and ruminations, needed training. Thoughts, I realized, are not mere reflections. They are causes that shape character, actions, and destiny. Unchecked, they breed anxiety, resentment, and confusion. Controlled, they generate clarity, creativity, and purpose. I practiced deliberate thinking, examining each thought, questioning its origin, and releasing that which served no constructive purpose. In doing so, I discovered that the mind could be both calm and active, sharp yet serene. The practice of mindful observation became central. I watched my emotions as a scientist observes a specimen under a microscope. Anger arose, what caused it? Anxiety surged, what imagined scenario fueled it? Joy appeared, was it genuine or superficial? Through this meticulous examination, I understood the mechanics of my inner world. I could see how desire, fear, pride, and envy intertwined, how they shaped actions, how they dictated moods. This awareness in itself became a form of freedom. Once seen, these forces could be chosen, directed, or released. I was no longer a passive passenger. I became the pilot of my inner landscape. I began to see that discipline of the mind was inseparable from discipline of action. Thought without action is impotent, and action without thought is blind. I structured my days to cultivate habits that reinforced both. Early mornings were devoted to reflection, meditation, and deliberate planning. Every choice from speech to movement was examined for its alignment with purpose. I asked daily, does this thought, word, or act build the person I aspire to be? If the answer was no, it was released. This rigorous practice gradually reshaped my character, transforming reactive tendencies into deliberate action. I learned the subtle art of emotional resilience. Life continued to present challenges, some mild, others severe, yet the difference now was in my response. Loss no longer devastated, betrayal no longer poisoned my peace, criticism no longer shook my confidence. I discovered that emotional resilience is born from the consistent application of inner discipline, from the repeated choice to observe, pause, and act consciously. Each trial became an opportunity to practice, each misfortune a lesson in the durability of spirit. I also explored the importance of purpose. Without purpose, effort becomes scattered, and even self-mastery can feel hollow. I reflected on the lessons of history and the great lives I admired, realizing that those who endured, created, and inspired all possessed a unifying purpose that guided their actions. I began to articulate mine, to cultivate strength of mind, clarity of judgment, and freedom of spirit, and to share these insights with others through example and reflection. Purpose transformed ordinary action into meaningful progress. Each act was now measured against a larger standard, lending coherence and significance to every moment. Alongside purpose came the cultivation of gratitude. Life is a constant interplay of gain and loss, success and setback. I noticed how easily I had taken gifts for granted, how often I had focused on what was missing rather than what was present. Gratitude became a daily practice, morning, noon, and night. I acknowledged the breath in my lungs, the lessons in my trials, the people who guided and challenged me, and the opportunities each day presented. Gratitude grounded me, softened my ego, and illuminated the richness of life even amid difficulty. I also embraced simplicity in thought and action. Complexity, unnecessary distraction, and constant pursuit of novelty had once consumed me. I realized that life's power lies in focus, clarity, and measured effort. I learned to act decisively on what truly mattered and to let go of all else. Each habit, each thought, each interaction was evaluated for necessity and value. Simplicity, I discovered, is not a lack of ambition but a concentration of energy on what is most important. It is a liberation from chaos, a channeling of power into meaningful directions. Over time, I cultivated a deep inner freedom. Nothing outside me could determine my peace. No opinion could dictate my value. No circumstance could diminish my resolve. I understood that freedom is always internal, never external. The world will continue to change, fortunes will rise and fall, people will come and go, yet a disciplined, conscious mind remains untouched. This freedom, once achieved, allows one to act with courage, kindness, and creativity, unbound by fear or desire, unshaken by praise or blame. I discovered that life itself becomes a teacher when approached with awareness. Every encounter, every challenge, every fleeting thought contains a lesson. Adversity teaches endurance. Disappointment teaches detachment. Desire teaches discernment. Joy teaches appreciation. The practice is continuous, the learning unending. Each day presents an opportunity to refine thought, master emotion, and act with purpose. In this ongoing practice, life unfolds not as a series of random events, but as a deliberate process of growth and refinement. I also noticed the subtle power of self-compassion. For years, I had judged myself harshly for failure, weakness, or misjudgment. I had mistaken self-criticism for discipline, unaware that true strength requires understanding and kindness toward oneself. I learned to treat my own shortcomings as teachers, to forgive lapses while recommitting to growth. This balance of accountability and compassion became essential to maintaining inner peace and sustaining effort over a lifetime. In my reflection, I also embraced the necessity of service and contribution. Self-mastery and freedom are incomplete without engagement in the world. I recognize that true strength manifests not only in solitude and discipline, but in the ability to act for the good of others, to inspire, to guide, and to uplift. Contribution transforms personal power into enduring impact. Every act of kindness, every teaching, every moment of guidance creates a ripple beyond the self. Service, I realized, is not an obligation but a natural extension of inner freedom and purpose. Finally, I came to understand that life is a continuous journey of mastery. There is no final destination, only a perpetual refinement of thought, emotion, and action. Each lesson builds upon the last, each challenge deepens understanding, each moment of clarity strengthens resolve. The practice of self-mastery, detachment, purpose, resilience, and compassion becomes a lifelong path. The goal is not perfection but conscious living, the deliberate shaping of character, and the cultivation of peace within the ever-changing currents of life. I reflect now on the man I once was, anxious, reactive, enslaved by desire and driven by fear. That man is still present, but he is observed rather than obeyed. He is a reminder of the journey, a compass pointing toward growth, but he no longer governs my actions. Today I move with clarity, patience, and purpose. I act without attachment, choose without fear, and live fully in the moment, aware that life is a fleeting gift to be engaged consciously, courageously, and wisely. Through detachment, discipline, and deliberate living, I have discovered the profound truth Napoleon Hill echoed in every lesson. The master of oneself holds the keys to freedom, peace, and fulfillment. The world may shift, fortunes may rise and fall, people may praise or scorn, yet nothing external can touch the inner life of one who governs thought, emotion, and action with conscious intent. The art of living is not found in the accumulation of wealth, status, or fleeting pleasure, but in the cultivation of a mind and heart that are unshakable, responsive, and aligned with enduring principles. And so I continue, each day a new page in the unfolding story of self-mastery. Each moment presents the choice, to react, to cling, to fear, or to observe, to release, to act with courage and clarity. Life, once a torrent that swept me along, has become a river in which I swim with awareness, skill, and peace. I remain like the stone in the river, steady amidst change, yet fully present to the currents that pass around me. Here in this state I have found the art of living, freedom, purpose, and mastery, not as distant ideals but as daily practice, tangible and real.